in.
Ma'am, you need to shut this operation down right now.
Officer, it's a children's fundraiser. We're on the public
The
easement.
complaint says you're vending without a permit. That's illegal.
This is exempt under Municipal Code 12.4. It's a lemonade
Don't
stand.
lecture me on the law. You're not a lawyer. Pack it up.
I am a lawyer, and you are violating our First
All right,
Amendment
counselor,
rights.
you can explain that to the judge.
Susan Crawford had no idea what she just walked into. In the next 15 minutes, her attempt to bully 2 children would turn into a nightmare. She was about to lose her job, her reputation, and a staggering $650,000. The mother she just threatened wasn't just a neighbor. She was a woman who knew the rules better than anyone. Keisha hadn't just checked the laws. She had built a legal fortress around that 50-cent cup of lemonade. Susan thought she was powerful. She thought she could push people around, but she forgot that everyone has a camera these days. Before I continue, let me ask you, have you ever been treated unfairly by someone in power just because they thought they could get away with it? Drop your answer in the comments. But Susan Crawford had no idea who she was screaming at. Keisha Johnson wasn't just a mom. She was a senior compliance auditor for the City Planning Department. That is a fancy title, but let me explain what it means. Keisha is the person who writes the rulebooks. She spends her days reading city codes and checking permits. She knows the laws better than the police officers on patrol. Keisha believes in doing things by the book. When her 10-year-old son, Malik, and 8-year-old daughter, Zara, wanted to sell lemonade, Keisha turned it into a lesson. They wanted to raise money for their school's new computer lab. Keisha didn't just buy lemons and sugar. She sat the kids down. She taught them how to apply for a permit. She taught them about food safety. She wanted them to learn how to run a real business. Most parents would just put a table out, not Keisha. She wanted her kids to feel proud and professional. On this hot Saturday, Keisha was just trying to be a mom. She was drinking iced tea on her porch while her kids learned about hard work. She had done everything right. She never expected that following the rules would make her a target. But as we are about to see, doing the right thing sometimes makes the wrong people very angry. Susan Crawford had a reputation in the Oak Creek neighborhood. She was 54 years old and worked as a high-end real estate agent. People in the area knew to avoid her. At her office, the assistants had a secret nickname for her. They called her the Evictor. She was famous for being mean to anyone she thought didn't belong. Susan had a pattern. In just 18 months, she filed 12 complaints with the Homeowners Association. Every single complaint was about neighbors who were not white. There was the time she called the police on a UPS driver. She said he was looking at houses. He was just delivering packages. Then there was the time she sprayed a neighbor's dog with a hose. She claimed the dog stepped 1 inch onto her grass. And recently, she tried to get a landscaper deported. She screamed at him because his truck was parked near her driveway for 5 minutes. Susan believed she owned the neighborhood. She felt it was her job to police the streets. She thought she was protecting property values, but really, she was just a bully. It is wrong to treat people this way. Everyone deserves to feel safe in their own home. Type justice in the comments if you agree that neighbors should look out for each other, not tear each other down. But today, Susan wasn't facing a landscaper or a delivery driver. She was facing a compliance auditor. And this time, her anger was going to cost her everything. It was July 14th. The temperature was 85 degrees. It was a beautiful, sunny afternoon. The location was the sidewalk right in front of the Johnson home. This is public property, meaning everyone has a right to be there. The atmosphere was cheerful. Neighbors were stopping by to say hello. Malik and Zara were laughing and pouring cups of lemonade. Their jar was half full of quarters. Keisha was watching from the porch, smiling. 2 other neighbors were chatting nearby. Then at 2:15 p.m., the mood changed. A luxury SUV drove down the street. It slowed down as it passed the kids. Then, the reverse lights came on. The car backed up aggressively. The driver pulled halfway onto the curb, almost hitting the grass. The window rolled down. It was Susan. She didn't say hello. She didn't smile. "Do you live here?" she asked. Her voice was sharp. Keisha looked up. She recognized Susan from the neighborhood meetings. She knew exactly who this was. "Yes, we do," Keisha answered politely. "Well, this looks like a mess," Susan said. The happy sounds of the afternoon stopped. The kids stopped laughing. The neighbors stopped talking, the air felt heavy. If stories like this matter to you, hit subscribe. We are building a community that stands up against this kind of behavior. That's when the joyful afternoon turned into a crime scene. Susan opened her car door and stepped out. She marched toward the table. "I want to see your business license," she demanded. Keisha put down her iced tea. She walked down the steps to stand near her children. "We don't need to show you anything," Keisha said. "We are in compliance." "Compliance?" Susan scoffed. "You are lowering our property values. Look at this trash. It's a health hazard." "It is not trash," Malik said. His voice shook a little. "It is fresh lemonade." Susan ignored him. She looked at Keisha. "I know people like you. You think the rules don't apply to you." "People like me?" Keisha asked. Her voice got harder. "What does that mean?" Susan didn't answer. Instead, she kicked the leg of the card table. The pitcher of lemonade wobbled. Yellow liquid sloshed onto the tablecloth. "Hey," Keisha shouted. She stepped between Susan and the children. "Do not touch their things." "I'll do what I want," Susan said. "I am going to sue you. You are running an illegal eatery in a residential zone." "Please leave my property," Keisha said. She pointed to the street. "Make me," Susan said. She pulled out her phone. She held it up like a weapon. "I'm calling 911. I feel threatened." "Threatened?" Keisha asked. "You are the one kicking tables." Susan dialed the number. She put the phone to her ear. She looked straight at Keisha with a smug smile. "Hello, police," Susan said loudly. Her voice changed. Suddenly, she sounded scared. "I need help. There are people surrounding me. They are being aggressive. I don't feel safe." It was a lie, a dangerous lie. A neighbor named Tom was standing nearby. He pulled out his own phone. He started recording. "I see what you are doing, Susan," Tom yelled. "Go home." Susan glared at him. She moved to stand in the middle of the sidewalk. She crossed her arms. She blocked the path so no other customers could pass. "I'm not going anywhere until the police shut this down," Susan said. Malik looked at his mom. "Are we going to jail?" he whispered. "No, baby," Keisha said. She touched his shoulder. "You didn't do anything wrong." But wait, there's more to this. What Susan didn't know was that Keisha had something waiting under the table. Susan stayed on the phone with the dispatcher. She kept adding details that weren't true. "They are yelling at me," she said into the phone. "They won't let me leave." Keisha watched her calmly. She didn't scream. She didn't fight. She turned to her kids. "Malik, take Zara inside," Keisha said softly. "Go play video games." The kids ran into the house. Now it was just Keisha and Susan. Keisha bent down behind the lemonade stand. She reached into a box. She pulled out a thick red binder. It was 3 inches thick. Susan saw the binder. She laughed. "What is that, your diary?" Keisha placed the binder on the table. She didn't open it yet. She just rested her hand on the cover. Tom, the neighbor, was still filming. "I have you kicking the table on video, Susan," he said. "I don't care," Susan snapped. "It was self-defense." Another witness, Sarah, stopped her jog. "Self-defense?" Sarah asked. "You almost hit me with your car when you pulled up. You are the only one being dangerous here." Susan ignored them. She was waiting for her backup. She believed the police were her personal security guards. 5 minutes later, a police cruiser turned the corner. The lights were flashing, but there was no siren. Officer James Blake stepped out of the car. He was a tall man with a serious face. He looked at the scene. He saw the spilled lemonade. He saw Susan standing in the middle of the sidewalk. He saw Keisha standing quietly by the table. Susan immediately ran toward him. She put on her fake scared face again. "Officer, thank goodness you are here," she said. She pointed a finger at Keisha. "That woman is running an illegal business. She is harassing me. I want her arrested." Officer Blake looked at Keisha. "Ma'am, is this your table?" "Yes, officer," Keisha said. "Do you have a permit for this?" Officer Blake asked. Susan smirked. She crossed her arms. This was the moment she had been waiting for. She expected Keisha to stutter. She expected Keisha to beg for mercy. She expected the officer to shut it all down. Keisha didn't stutter. She tapped the red binder. "Actually, officer," Keisha said, "I have everything right here." Susan's smile faded just a little bit. She looked at the binder. She looked at Keisha's calm face. For the first time, Susan started to worry. She realized this might not go the way she planned. Keisha opened the binder. The metal rings clicked loudly. It was the sound of justice arriving. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think Susan should have walked away while she had the chance? Officer Blake walked over to the table. Susan followed him closely. It doesn't matter what she has, Susan said. You can't sell food on the street. It's the law. Let me see what she has, Officer Blake said. He looked at the open binder. Keisha pointed to the first tab. It was labeled clearly. This is our temporary vendor permit, Keisha said. It is signed by the city clerk. It is stamped and notarized. It is valid for 48 hours. Officer Blake looked at the paper. He nodded. This looks correct. Susan's eyes went wide. That's fake. She printed that at home. Keisha turned the page to the second tab. These are the food handler certificates for both Malik and Zara, Keisha said. They took the online safety course last week, and here is the passing score. Officer Blake raised his eyebrows. He was impressed. Even the kids are certified. Yes, sir, Keisha said. We follow the rules. Susan was starting to panic. She was losing control. What about the health department? You need a commercial kitchen. Keisha turned to the third tab. This is the waiver for charitable events, Keisha explained. Section 4, paragraph B, it allows prepared beverages to be sold for school fundraisers without a commercial kitchen inspection. Keisha looked at Officer Blake. I am a compliance auditor for the city, officer. I wrote the memo on this regulation last year. Officer Blake looked at Keisha. Then he looked at Susan. The officer stopped writing in his notebook. Ma'am, Officer Blake said to Susan, everything here is legal. There is no violation. Susan's face turned red. You are not doing your job. I pay your salary. Arrest her. Step back, Officer Blake said firmly. You are blocking a public easement. That is a violation. Tom stepped forward with his phone. Officer, I have video of her kicking the table and almost hitting a jogger with her car. Officer Blake watched the video on Tom's phone. His face got serious. He turned back to Susan. I am issuing you a citation for disorderly conduct, the officer said, and if you do not get in your car and leave right now, I will arrest you for harassment. Susan gasped. She looked around. Everyone was looking at her. The neighbors were shaking their heads. This is ridiculous, Susan muttered. She grabbed the ticket from the officer's hand. She marched back to her luxury SUV. She slammed the door so hard the car shook. If stories like this matter to you, hit subscribe. We need to expose this kind of entitlement. Susan drove away, thinking it was over. She thought she would just pay a small fine and move on. She was wrong. Tom had hit the upload button on his phone. By 4:00 p.m., Tom's video hit TikTok. He used the hashtag #LemonadeKaren. In the video, you could clearly see Susan kicking the table. You could hear her lying to the police. By 6:00 p.m., the video had 500,000 views. People were outraged. They saw a grown woman bullying children. They saw a mother defending her family with class and intelligence. The internet works fast. By 9:00 p.m., the video was on the front page of Reddit. Local people recognized Susan. They posted links to her real estate profile. By midnight, the video had 4 million views. Susan's real estate firm had to lock their Instagram comments because so many people were angry. The next morning, the local news showed up at Keisha's house. They interviewed her. She showed them the red binder on live TV. The reporter called her the mom who came with receipts. Susan tried to fix it. She deleted her Facebook page. She told a friend that the video was edited out of context, but nobody believed her. The video didn't lie. It is amazing how fast the world can change when the truth comes out. Susan spent years bullying people in the shadows, but in one afternoon, the light shined on her. This story was shared millions of times. Share it if you think others should see this. 3 days later, the real trouble began. The Johnson family decided not to let this go. They hired a lawyer. They filed a lawsuit against Susan for defamation, harassment, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The lawsuit claimed that Susan lied to the police to harm the family. It claimed she targeted them because of their race. During the legal process, the lawyers found Susan's history. They subpoenaed the Homeowners Association records. They found the 12 other complaints. They found a pattern of racial bias. It was clear evidence that Susan targeted minorities. Susan's real estate firm didn't want the bad publicity. They fired her immediately. They put out a statement saying they did not support her behavior. Susan lost her job, but the financial hit was even worse. Wait until you hear what happened next. Susan's lawyers told her she would lose in court. The video evidence was too strong. The binder was too perfect. She had to settle. The settlement was massive. Susan and her insurance company had to pay the Johnson family $650,000. $650,000, that is the price of her anger. But money wasn't the only thing she lost. Susan was effectively blacklisted from real estate in the city. Her license was placed under review by the state board. The judge also granted a restraining order. Susan is not allowed to go near the Johnson family or their home for 5 years. She can't even drive down their street. Susan had to write a formal apology letter. It was part of T. He deal, her lawyer read it out loud. It sounded forced, but she had to admit she was wrong. Keisha took the high road again. She didn't buy a fancy car with the money. She donated a large portion to the school's computer lab. The rest went into a trust fund for Malik and Zara. The lemonade stand started with a goal of raising a few $100s. In the end, it secured the children's future for college. Months later, Keisha sat in her living room. The cameras were gone. The street was quiet. She talked about how the incident affected her family. "My son asked me if he was a criminal," Keisha said. "That broke my heart. A 10-year-old boy shouldn't have to worry about going to jail for selling lemonade." Keisha explained why the binder was so important. "I know the law," she said, "but most people don't. If I hadn't had that binder, would the officer have believed her? Would he have believed a black woman over a wealthy white woman in a luxury car?" It is a hard question to answer. Keisha had a message for other families. "Document everything," she said. "Know your rights. Do not let people intimidate you." She also had a message for people like Susan. "Mind your own business unless someone is actually in danger. We have the right to exist in this neighborhood just as much as you do." Keisha was grateful to Tom for filming. Without that video, it might have been her word against Susan S. "We stood tall," Keisha said. "We didn't lower ourselves to her level. That is the best lesson I could teach my kids." This case reminds us of other incidents. We have seen people call the police on barbecues and bird watchers. It is a pattern of weaponizing the police against black people in public spaces. The difference here was Keisha. She was an expert. She beat the system using the system's own rules. But we need to ask why a lemonade stand requires a 3-inch binder just to be safe. So let me ask you, do you think Susan would have called the cops if the kids looked different? Do you think a $650,000 penalty is enough for what she did? Do you have a binder ready if this happens to you? Because if we don't fix the problem of weaponizing the police, then we're just waiting for the next Susan, the next innocent family, the next bad consequence. Comment below if you believe the settlement was fair. If you think stories like this matter, hit that subscribe button. We're going to keep exposing these stories. We're going to keep demanding better. This isn't just about one angry neighbor or one lemonade stand. It's about all of us. See you in the next one.